Hey YouTube, Phantom Outlaw here, coming at you with another review. And as you've already seen from the title, what we're going to talk about today is the Glock 23. So before we get too far into it, I do want to go over some of the basic information here for you, like I always do. And this is information that you can find several places online. Certainly the Glock website is a good place to start, but this is not any secretive information. You can find it out there all over the place. So here we go. All right, so this is the Glock 23, which is and this is a Gen 4. The caliber is a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson. The overall length is 7.28 inches. The height is 4.99 inches. The width is 1.18 inches. The sight radius is 6.02 inches. Barrel length is 4.01 inches. The weight empty is almost 24 ounces, 23.7. The weight full is just over 31 ounces. The trigger pull factory is 5.5 pounds. I've tweaked mine a bit. I've done some polishing and replaced a couple of springs and put a 3.5 pound connector in there. So mine is just under 5. But 5.5 is the standard factory trigger weight. Capacity is 13 plus 1. There is no external safety. This is a Glock. It does have adjustable back straps, including the beaver tail back straps. The sights on this, I've updated from the Glock factory sights to the Trijicon sights. Alright, so that's some of the basic information. Next thing I want to do is I do want to show you we've got a safe firearm. So we're going to show that we do have an empty magazine. Nothing in the chamber. So we are dealing with a safe firearm. Alright, so what we've got here is the compact version of the .40 caliber from Smith & Wesson. Now they have in the basic, the full size, which would be the Glock 22, and I do have a review out there of the Glock 22. Then the compact size is this one, the 23. Then there's the Glock 27, which is the subcompact or baby Glock version. They've also got the Glock 35, which is the same, well, slightly bigger than the Glock 22, but it's ported and it's more for competition shooting. So we won't really, I don't own that, so I really can't speak to those too much. But those are the different size options that are out there. So your three basic ones, you've got the 22, the 23, which is here, and then the 27, which is slightly smaller than this one. Now, like just about all Glocks, this is a double stack magazine. So it's good. And the reason I mention that is, as you're probably aware by now, the Glock 42 is now out. That's the 380 version, which is a single stack. There is a 45 single stack. I believe that's the 30 or the 36. But as of right now, there's no single stack version for the 9mm or 40. We're all hoping that the 9mm single stack shows up soon, but it's not. As far as 40 goes, if they come out with the 9, the 40 is pretty much a no-brainer. They're identical parts. You just got to swap out the barrel and the magazine, so who knows. But anyhow, so this is the 23. A couple things I do want to talk about, some changes that I have made. I've already talked about this with all of my other Glocks. But the slide release lever right here, which you'll see sticks out on both sides. It sticks out with this one. It's just a fraction of an inch longer on each side. Makes it much easier to grasp when you want to break it down. The slide release, I don't know how well you can see this, but it's a little bit extended. Again, I like that. This is the 23. It's the same size as the Glock 19, which you've already seen my review on maybe. I have carried both of these before in holsters. This does not get caught up at all. I've read and heard some people complain about the extended slide release gets snagged on clothing or holsters. Maybe theirs is different. There are more than one option out there. It's rounded, it's smooth. I don't know how well you can see that, but there is no way that snags on anything. So something to think about. All right, because this is the Gen 4, it does have the extended magazine release, which is reversible. You can make it ambidextrous. It does have the back straps. So this one does have the beaver tail back straps, which I mentioned. Not all Gen 4s have that. They made that change about a year or so ago. So if you buy a Glock Gen 4 that's been made since, I think it was April or May of 2013, you should have the beaver tail back straps. So your back strap kit should look more like this one. And as you can tell by looking at this, it comes with, there's two different sizes. Well, there's three sizes. There's the actual grip with no back straps on it, and then you can put these two here on it, or the two different sizes for the beaver tail back strap. Those are your options if you have the newer one. All right. Some other different options we can talk about here as far as the Gen 4 goes. The stippling or the texture on the grip is a little bit different. I like it. I've shot the Gen 3s before. I don't have a problem with that either. But some people, and my wife is one of them, does not care for this texture as much. She's never shot any other Glock other than mine, which are all Gen 4, so she doesn't have anything to compare it to in that regard. But she does shoot my M&Ps, which she likes, and she also has her own shield, which she really likes, and she has Walther PK380, which again she likes. So those are a little bit smoother textures. She feels that this is a little bit too aggressive. That's your own personal preference if you want to look at that. I don't feel it's terribly aggressive, but that's my own 2 cents. So Gen 4, it does have the beaver tail, which for me, again, if you don't know what the beaver tail is for, it allows you to get your hand much higher up on the grip, or as high up as you possibly can, so that your bore radius, it's lower in your hand. 2 reasons that helps. One, the closer you, ideally you could try to hold the gun like this, except obviously with the recoil you can't. But if you can get your barrel lined up with your hand, your felt recoil is going to be much less. You're going to be able to pick up your targets much faster, and it's just a smoother operation. Now the downside, if you don't have the beaver tail backstrap, you can get what's called slide bite. Now if we want to look at this with the slide back, when you've got the slide back with the beaver tail backstrap on, there's still that slight gap in there, so that your finger, or the webbing of your thumb right here, is not going to get pinched with the slide. Now when you're shooting, the slide doesn't stop back here. Obviously, when you're shooting, that's just it's gonna be constantly going like that every time you pull the trigger. So if you're not careful, especially if you have looser skin in this area, you can get what's called slide bite. And if you've never had that, then good for you. You don't have to worry about it. If you have had it, you don't want to get it again. It just stings a little bit. So the beaver tail backstrap is a nice plus to be able to get with that. And the fact that the Gen 4s now come with that is another plus as far as I'm concerned with the Glocks. All right. Now, it breaks down just like all other Glocks. There's a million videos out there to show you how to break down, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I think even 1 or 2 of my videos I may have mentioned that. But the breakdown of the Glock is straightforward and very simple. The 23 is the middle of the size as far as the 40 cals go. I've already mentioned that. I like that. To me, this is a more comfortable size. If I had it to do over again, and I had gotten this one before I got the Glock 22, I probably would not have got the Glock 22. Since I've had this one, I rarely shoot the 22 anymore. Nothing wrong with it. I just like the smaller, more compact size. Now, this is a 40 caliber, and one of the phrases or terms that I hear thrown about pretty easily and frequently in regards to the 40 caliber is the term snappy. And that kind of bugs me a little bit, but I don't fault anybody for it. The 40 is a snappy round, or I shot the 40 caliber and it was snappy, whatever the case may be. Well, it's a bigger caliber than the 9, so of course it's going to be a more powerful round. Now, all that is relative. Depending on the gun you're shooting, you may or may not even notice it. The larger and thus heavier the gun is, the less you're going to notice it. So the Glock 22, which is the full-size 40 caliber, really absorbs a lot of that recoil. No matter, just like any full-size gun, no matter what caliber, is going to have less of a felt recoil than a smaller gun. Likewise, if you were to go down to the Glock 27, or Baby Glock, which is the smallest of the Glocks, you're going to feel more felt recoil. Well, that translates to other manufacturers as well. It's not just Glock. Is there a difference between shooting the 9 and the 40? Well, yes, absolutely there is. And to some people, it may be an uncomfortable difference. But in my experiences, it's not a bad recoil. The snappiness, if you will, is not a problem. Now, I'm going to bring up my wife again. She's a relatively new shooter. She's been shooting for a little over a year now. I've been shooting for 20 plus, almost 25 years now. So I'm used to it, I guess. But for her, I was concerned that she may not enjoy it. She may not like it. She may be intimidated by it, whatever you want to say. And that has not been the case. The first 40 that she shot, I used to have a Star. Star was the name. I forget. It was a 31P. Anyhow, it was a 40. It was a metal frame, metal slide, metal everything. It was a heavier gun. And she shot that a year and a half, 2 years ago maybe, and she didn't have any problem whatsoever with it. Moving forward, I now have the 22, the 23 by Glock. I've also got the Smith & Wesson M&P 40 caliber. I used to have a SIG 40 caliber, the P250 and 40, and she shot all of those, and she's had no trouble whatsoever. She doesn't feel intimidated by the 40 cal or bothered by the 40 cal. It really just depends, I guess, on what your expectations are. She has shot, and I'm just using her as a reference, she has shot 45s, she has shot 357 Magnum, she has shot 44 Magnum, albeit once. That was one that did intimidate her. She has no interest in shooting the 44 Magnum again. The 357 Magnum does not bother her. She prefers the 38 in that gun, but she'll shoot the 357 with no problem. So maybe that's part of it. And I believe she got a little bit proficient with the revolver before she got really into the automatics and the semis. So maybe because she had shot a number of the 357 rounds, the 40 didn't bother her because of that. I don't know what to tell you on that exactly. I don't believe she has shot my 10 millimeter. I do have the Glock 20. I don't remember if she shot that. She probably wouldn't like that quite as much. There's a lot more recoil there. But as far as the 40 goes, the term snappy gets, I think, thrown around a little bit too quickly sometimes. It's all relative, but if you're holding the gun right and you know you're not shooting a 22, you shouldn't be surprised. You shouldn't be inconvenienced, and it shouldn't be a big deal for you. But because the 23 is slightly smaller, some people seem to feel that it's going to be a bigger bang than with the 22. I have not had that same experience. I enjoy the 23. I like the size of it. Like everybody else, I wish it was just a little bit smaller. I'm looking forward to when they come out with the single stack 9mm next year, hopefully. And maybe we'll see if a 40 comes along with it, because with the 19 as well as the 23, if we could get these guns just a little bit thinner, and of course that would require the grip to be thinner, which would require a single stack, thus all the terminology, it will be more concealable. My EDC, as far as concealability, I do have an M&P shield, like I mentioned, which is significantly smaller than the 19 or the 23. It's smaller than the 26 and 27 as well, but in different ways. So the single stack may be something that's more appealing. But as far as the full size double stack, and you can see just how thick the double stack is, the 23 and the 19 are my first choices. Fantastic firearms. Really enjoy shooting them. Really enjoy the simplicity as far as the breakdown. Even the complete breakdown from Glocks are real simple. I've mentioned the sights. You can see the Trijicon sights here. I enjoy these sights better than the factory sights. So that's what we've got going on as far as all of the specs, the updates, the adjustments, and whatnot. As far as the pros and cons, one of the things I do want to talk about, sorry about that, one of the things I do want to talk about as far as pros, and this is one that I brought up before, and one of the viewers called me out on it, and I'll give him credit. It was probably a good call. I used to say one of the pros for Glocks is that it's a Glock, but that doesn't mean it's perfect. And so to amend that statement, it is a very reliable gun, as are most Glocks. Now, some Glocks are not, but most are. This one, the only issue I've had whatsoever in the history of my owning this gun, and I've probably put 600-700 rounds through it, after a couple hundred rounds, I started having problems with some fail to ejects, and it would happen 2 or 3 times every 50 rounds. It was weird, but it was fairly consistent when it would happen. I could go a couple magazines with no issues, then I may have it happen twice in the magazine, or it could happen once a magazine. I mean, it was all over the place. And long story short, come to find out that, at least according to Glock, I was actually at Glock in Smyrna for a different issue, and I brought it up, and the technician that I was dealing with told me that there is a known issue with the springs in the magazines, and they would be happy to replace the springs for me. And I guess it's just one more loop in the spring. And he said it was just a 40 caliber issue. And I mentioned that I also had Glock 22 with magazines that I had not had any problem with. And I'm pretty sure that I've used the Glock 22 magazines in the 23 a few times, but it was long enough ago that I really couldn't remember if I'd had the problems with both sets of magazines. At any rate, he said that they would be willing to replace all the magazines for free, no charge. And so I have a bunch of them. I had multiple magazines for the 22 and the 23. No problem. Bring them in. We'll swap them out for you. So I did that. They swapped out the springs in all of the magazines. And he told me that starting sometime in early to mid 2013, I guess all of their magazines for the 22 and 23 were being made with these extended magazine springs, for lack of a better term. So the problem's been fixed, but anyhow, so they replaced the springs in all of my 40 cal magazines, and since then, and I've used all of the magazines in this, the 23 now, and I've had zero problems. So I started off with zero problems, had some hiccups. They replaced the springs in the magazines, and since then, zero problems. I've put a couple hundred rounds through since then, probably 300 rounds or so, plus since they replaced all the springs, and everything's worked flawlessly since then. So that's the only real hiccup that I've had with this particular gun, but I did not have that at all with the 22, but just with the 23. But overall reliability, other than that little hiccup, fantastic. It's definitely a pro. Field strip and breakdown for Glocks is notoriously simple. That's a very good thing, a very positive thing. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the term that I like that people talk about, Glock simplicity. The fact that it is simple, there's 35 parts in the whole gun. There's just really not as much to go wrong. And I don't know all the numbers. I do know that breaking it down, I've taken all my Glocks, broken them down 100% several times. And I can't, well, not that I can't, I haven't done that with other guns. I don't have the confidence yet. But 34 parts is not a whole lot to worry about. So that's a good thing. Aftermarket parts, there's a zillion options out there. You go on the internet and type in Glock and do a search, a Google search, and you're going to find a bunch of stuff. You go to Amazon or eBay and do a search for Glock, you can find all kinds of different options, whether it's factory parts or third-party parts or different colors and different features and all, you name it. There's just a ton of different options out there. I would have to say, I'm guessing, but I would have to say that there's more parts available and more aftermarket parts available for Glock than any other firearm that's out there. I know the Ruger, certainly the 1022 has a lot of options as well. If you do a search on that, you're going to find a bunch of stuff, but that's a pretty iconic gun that's been around for a long time. Smith & Wesson, there's a bunch of parts out there as well, but the Glock, it almost seems unlimited. So that's a big plus as well, the aftermarket parts and availability. Magazines, up until recently, I would have said the availability was a big plus for them, but I've heard some people comment, whether it's in person or online, that Glock magazines, they're having a harder time coming by them than they have in the past. Now, does that mean that when they go to their gun store, instead of being a whole box full of magazines, there's only 10 available? I don't know what that means exactly. One person I spoke to was looking for a magazine for a Glock 17 and had to go to like 4 different places until he found one. That was definitely not the case in the past, and I'm sure it won't be the case for long if it is, but the magazine availability should be considered a plus. Certainly the price, you can get a Glock magazine for less than $30 just about anywhere. If you pay more than $30, you're overspending. So that's got to be considered a pro as well. The trigger and the reset, we've already talked about that in some of my other videos, so I won't bore you with all that. But the reset on a Glock trigger is very crisp, very clean, very audible. It's a big plus. If you're somebody that shoots using the trigger reset, the Glock is definitely the standard that all other ones would be compared against. Is it the absolute best trigger in the world? Well, probably not. I think most people would tell you if they shot enough 1911s that the 1911 trigger would be the one that most other triggers would be compared against. But that's not an apples to apples comparison. The Glock trigger is a very solid, very good system. That definitely would be considered a plus. It does have the rail. It's not proprietary anymore, so you can put anything you want to on the rail, so that's a good thing, whether it be a light or a flashlight or a zombie dagger, who knows what. You've got some options out there. I do have a couple of cons that I feel I need to bring up. Now, I've mentioned this in my other Glock reviews, so I think it should be consistent with that. The grip angle and the ergonomics of the Glock definitely fall short compared to other ones, and the one I like to use the best reference to is the M&P line from Smith & Wesson. I'm not saying that the Glock grip is horrible and it's a bad gun and don't shoot it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying between the two, the M&P, to me and to many other people, there's just a better feel, a better natural point of aim. The grip angle, the ergonomics, etc. are just more comfortable with the M&P line, as well as a few others. Glock's, the angle itself is different. The M&P, as well as most other gun manufacturers, now copy the 1911 grip angle. So for those of us that have been shooting that particular angle for a long time, and for me it's been 20 plus years, the difference between the Glock grip angle and the other grip angles maybe is what makes it stand out to me. Now again, does that mean it's bad? No, it's just different. Does that mean that everybody's going to feel that it's different and bad? No. If you're not familiar with the other grip angles, or if you don't have a ton of experience on the other grip angles, then perhaps the Glock grip angle to you feels very natural and no problem. That's fine. I'll make the same recommendation here that I have in most of my other videos. If you're looking to get a firearm and you don't have a lot of background in firearms, if you're watching this video because you're interested in the Glock 23 and you want to see if it's the one for you, what I recommend you do is go to your local gun store. Hopefully they rent some guns and rent the 23, or if you know somebody who has one, see if you can borrow it from them. Go shoot it. Go get a Smith & Wesson M&P. Go get a Springfield XD. Go get whatever gun you're looking for. If it's a SIG, if it's, you know, whatever you want to look for, get a couple. Don't just buy a gun because, oh, it's a Glock, so it's got to be great, or it's a Smith & Wesson, or this or that. Buy it because you're comfortable with it. Buy it because you've shot it and you feel very confident. You feel that you know that if you have to shoot it, you're going to be comfortable and confident when you're shooting it. So, like I said before, try it out. Not just holding it, but also shooting it. Many people are very happy with the Glock format. Some people, maybe not. Who knows? But that's something to think about. And the last thing I want to mention as far as any cons go would be, and I've already mentioned this, but the factory sights. Now again, because I didn't like the factory sights doesn't mean that you won't like the factory sights. I didn't care for them as much. They're not bad. They're not horrible. I just didn't like them. I preferred it's funny because I had a number of different semi-autos 12 or 15 years ago. And I had a SIG that had the night sights on it. And that was my favorite gun because it had the night sights. And it was cool. And it was this and that. And whatever. But back then, the night sights weren't as readily available. You could buy them aftermarket, but not as many guns came with it as an option. So when I fast forward several years, the Glocks, when I got into the Glock world, I just didn't like that U-shaped rear sight. Something about it was just different. Maybe it was because I wasn't used to it. That's why I didn't like it. Again, I'm not going to say it's bad. It was just something that I didn't care for. So for me, to fall back into the Trijicon night sight line was a no-brainer because it was something that I did have experience with and was very comfortable with. I don't look at it now as a cool factor. I don't use the Trijicon sights because it's cool, like people were looking at some of the night sights 12 or 15 or 18 years ago. For me, it's just a no-brainer as far as when you look at it. When you look at these sights right now, it's a 3-dot sight. It's something you're very familiar with. Many, many handguns have this. And the fact that it is also the night sights, to me, is a plus. Price point was a big thing, too. $85, I think, or $87 for these was a decent price. Again, going back to 12 or 15 years ago, a set of night sights, you were going to spend $200+ for them before installation. Add another, $20 or $40 onto that for installation, and you're looking at, $230 to $250 to get some night sights put on a gun. And that's if they were made for your particular gun. It wasn't quite as universal as it is now. Whereas now, most of the big name guns, there's multiple different manufacturers that make sights, so you've got options. You don't have to spend, like I said, these were $85 or so online. As I've already mentioned, the Glock night sights at $57 is a steal. You can still spend $200 on sights, but they're a lot better and more tweaked than they were 12 or 15 years ago. So you've got options. Anyhow, so that's what we've got going on as far as the Glock 23. Great little gun. It's very comfortable to pick up. It's very comfortable to handle. It doesn't quite have the ergonomics that other guns have, but it's still not a bad gun at all. I like the size. This is an EDC gun that I could use and have used. I'm looking forward to maybe something a little bit smaller coming out here in the next couple of years from Glock, but we'll have to wait and see. But there is absolutely nothing bad that I have to say overall for the gun. The Glock line is a very solid line. It's simple, but the simplicity is part of the appeal for a lot of people. So there's a lot of good things going as far as that goes. If you've got any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I hope you're all doing well. Take care.